Welcome back to Small Caps. My name's Kerry Stevenson. Most of you will know that lately I've been talking about how I really like copper. And a lot of you will know that copper is going to be a really key commodity going forward. So I'm excited because today I've got the managing director of Hot Chili. ASX code is HCH. Christian Easterday joins us today for the very first time. We're going to talk all about Hot Chili and why I think you guys need to sit up and take notice right now. Christian, great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you, Kerry. Been looking forward to this interview for a while.
Well, I have too, Christian, because you have got a large play in Chile with copper, and I've been saying for a while now, in 2021, copper is going to become a very important commodity. It's been shown in the prices. We're only just getting started. This, in my opinion, is a new age for copper. You guys have got a very large resource. So first up, because it's the first time you've been talking to our small caps audience, a little bit of your background. You're a geologist and also a mineral economist. You've been with Hot Chili since its foundation. So just give us a little bit of background about Hot Chili, and then we'll dive in a little bit more into the detail.
Yeah, sure, Kerry. Myself and Murray Black founded the company back in 2008 privately, looking for large opportunities in Chile. And now I've dedicated over 12 years of my life to really consolidate what now has become, as you said, the largest copper play on the ASX by resource size. And most importantly, we had the fortitude to continuing doing deals, to continue to double down on this, build scale, and really ride through an entire copper cycle. Most people probably don't appreciate the timeframes in the copper market for large-scale copper developments. You know, that they are very substantial. Authors like Sykes talk about 21 years from discovery through to first production on these large-scale assets, and that's very much growing. Not least of all because the world isn't making any of these large discoveries. In fact, most recently, the past 2 years has been dedicated to, a stunning discovery we have on the coastline that was found next to our original asset when we started this company, Productora. So the new Cortadera resource is one of two major global discoveries in the copper space since 2014. And that tells you all you need to know about a complete lack of new major copper supply for the world, and why this next copper boom going on now is very different to the last and very, very different to the previous boom before that.
Well, before I get into the actual size of your deposit and all that sort of, why is this new copper boom different from the last one? Because you've got one of the things that I do want to let people know is, Christian, as you just said, you have been immersed in this for the last 12 years. You understand the copper market. And I think it's important for investors to understand what you call a new copper boom. What does that mean? What's your understanding of that?
Well, I subscribe to a couple of very smart people. You become an expert in copper when you dedicate 12 years of your life, and we've built now, 3 million tons of copper and nearly 3 million ounces of gold on the coast. We have an upper tier 2 asset, probably only the only legitimate asset that is not far away from attaining a tier 1 status. Just to put that into context,
okay,
that makes Hot Chili a top 5 or top 6 global copper player that is not controlled by a major. That's 5 million tons of copper, 5 million ounces of gold. If you want to put that into in-ground money terms, the numbers are mind-boggling. You're talking about 60 billion US of in-ground metal value just on the copper and gold alone. So just that in context, and coming back to why this copper boom, and if we want to call it a boom, then certainly copper prices recovering from $2 a pound at the outset of the pandemic a year ago to now, I think we're sitting right now at $4.83 per pound copper, breaking all-time highs every day. It is the top performing metal in the market at the moment. And why is it different to the last boom? Well, most importantly, the copper space has been trying to keep up with depletion for the past 20 years by simply lowering the cutoff grade of production on these very large scale copper assets. 80% of the world's copper comes from copper porphyry deposits. These deposits are typically found in South America, in Central Asia. They're not really things that are in front of the Australian market because they're not in our backyard. But these deposits are where all of the copper in the world comes from. And what you've seen over the past 20 years, and certainly over the past 30 years, is the average reserve grade, declining from 1.6% copper grade, now sitting at just under 0.5% copper grade.
Wow, okay.
So the response to depletion of the world's copper for the past 20 years by the global copper sector, against a backdrop of less and less discoveries being made, with increasing budgets being applied by the world's largest mining companies, is that they have simply just lowered the cutoff grade.
Of course.
And you see that works for a while until you get to a cutoff grade of, say, 0.2 to 0.5% copper, and you start to hit a wall.
Yeah.
Once you start moving below 0.2% and you start moving to 0.1%, you find that there is actually not a lot of copper in the tons. There just isn't the ability for the copper industry to replace its depletion. So in the last boom, we had a supply response. Copper went from 65 cents a pound and it went to $4.64 a pound, the all-time high, until the last couple of weeks. So that is a factor of an 8 or 9 times increase in the copper price. Very stunning. A rush of investment, huge amount of exploration put into the ground, 5 years for the copper sector to respond in terms of a supply response. So a 5-year period of inelasticity and then an elastic response. And of the 22 or 23 million tons of new, 23 million tons of copper metal in new reserves that eventually made it into the sector, only 5 million tons of that was from new discoveries. The remainder, 2/3 or 70%, was actually produced from lowering cutoff grades.
Wow. Yep.
So now we fast forward to this copper boom, if we want to call it. The starting point is $2 per pound, not 65 cents.
Yep.
And we're at $4.80 at the moment. I think you can do the maths on where a lot of the banks are now starting to line up and starting to really look at the thematic. Everyone's been focusing at the beginning of this pandemic on the demand side. And the demand side shocked everybody because really copper as the health barometer of global growth really should have plummeted, and it did initially. And then something really strange happened against every analyst's prediction in the world, and probably only one group, and again, referring back to a very, very good group that I do read, Gehring, Rosenzweig. These guys were the only ones that predicted that copper was about to, and most of the metals complex were about to undergo one of the biggest bull runs that we've seen in the past 100 years. Only happened twice before because they saw all the same preconditions. They called it, they were right. Now we see groups like Goldman Sachs, Citi, Jefferies, etc. And Jefferies were one of the early proponents for a copper resurgence. Now we see exactly what those guys talked about in April of last year. And these guys have really now started to focus on the supply side. The supply response has always been the structural issue in the copper sector. And it is why the copper price will continue to go up. There will be no wall of supply coming. There will be a very, very reduced ability to reduce this cutoff grade and produce extra reserves. Head grades will continue to tumble and prices will continue to support that. And what that means for a company like Hot Chili is we're holding one of the top 20 by scale copper developments in the pipeline. I think we're about 12th or 13th at the moment. And we're in a space where the North American equity markets have now started to dramatically re-rate those values, 3, 4, 5 times. Solaris Copper in the US, with putting out very similar world-class drill results to Hot Chili, have now reached over $1 billion market capitalization.
Do you think that the North American market understands the copper space and these copper companies a lot better than... Look, I'm not poo-pooing the Australian shareholders of Hot Chili, so don't get me wrong there, but...
No, they certainly understand it. They're shareholders.
I'm wondering whether the wider Australian market understands that I'm looking at Hot Chili thinking you've got a pretty big maiden resource out there. I want to know, in your opinion, do you think that it's misunderstood? And that's why I was excited to get you on the program today.
Well, look, it is an extremely exciting opportunity, because when you say, well, let's look at all of the copper space in Australia. Oh, Hot Chili's over here in size and grade and advancement. In one of the best mining countries to develop a large-scale copper project. And the rest of the Australian space is a lot smaller. So you really put us in amongst those TSXV players, New York Stock Exchange players. And then you look at them and you say, wow, let's pick these top 6. They're all the same size. Most of them are lower grade in harder to develop jurisdictions in Peru or Ecuador.
What's your average grade? What's your average grade?
At the moment, we're sitting at about 0.5% copper equivalent. So out of the top 20 undeveloped projects in the pipeline that a major doesn't control, we're the 4th best by grade on that scale. So you then look at those peers and you say, wow, Hot Chili's in amongst companies that are no less than 350 million, all the way up to 1.1 billion. And then you realize that this is not new. This is not some sort of ripple in the time. We've seen this before. We saw it in the last boom. The North American space understands big scale copper. Most of the large scale copper developers in the world are over on those exchanges, and they got the jump on the Australian equity space last time. And it's happened again. 6-8 months ago, these companies started tripling, quadrupling. So we're just starting to see the interest and the realization, wow, if copper keeps going up, these things are leveraged, crazily leveraged.
Yeah.
And you just have to look at just one component of our asset base. So we completed a pre-feasibility on Productora at the end of the last copper cycle, when copper prices fell apart. And we started a program to be one of the last copper developers standing today, and that was about surviving. But we developed a pre-feasibility that at $3 a pound copper had 220 million US NPV on it against a $700 million project to build. So on the face of it, at that time, Hot Chili was snookered. Can't develop this project. The price won't support it, or you need a lot more tons. Fast forward now to where we are, we've secured a world-class discovery, one of only 2 since 2014 globally. 14 kilometres away. We are building scale dramatically now. We've moved from 240 million tonnes to 750 million tonnes in that time frame since we started drilling last year. So scale is building. And that means mine life is building, and the ability to have a high grade is building. So the economics are changing on a large production hub.
And will continue to change. And I just want to bring up one thing. You started trading on the, and I want to get back to that, but you started trading on the OTCQB recently. Do you think that that's because what was the reasoning behind that? What's happening? Is there more interest coming in from North America?
We learned our lesson last time. We observed what happened in the last boom. The North Americans got the jump. We wanted to go over to North America and dual list the company when we were ready, when we had scale, when we had the economics behind us. We're now in that position. So the OTCQB, we started that process about 3 or 4 months ago. It was meant to take a lot less time, but COVID is making everything take a lot longer. Now that we have that trading, I'm very pleased to see the first trading day trading us at about 50 or 60% higher than our share price in Australia. Very little volumes at the moment, because the OTCQ is obviously a tag along listing that just piggybacks off of Australia. But more stock will eventually start trading over there, and we hope to really re-rate the company by putting ourselves in front of the North American investors. So the TSXV is really the next step for the company. We're putting together a team that will be pushing that forward over the coming few months. Sorry, Kerry, just to go back to my point on Productora. So what's the NPV of our small project in this mix when you want to look at leverage on where the copper price is? You're looking at Productora as a plus 1.2 billion US NPV project at over 40% IRR at spot today. That's what this boom means for value. So the Australian equity space is waking up. It got jumped by the North Americans, but the opportunities in the Australian equity space, there are many, and Hot Chili would have to be one of the largest opportunities on fundamental values and on the activity that we're doing. You see, we don't just have a 750 million tonne play that is the largest on the ASX on the coastline of Chile. We have a play that's about to take a step towards tier one, and that's very rare, moving into a copper price environment that I believe will continue to rise.
There's going to be a few eyeballs on you, I think, in the coming months, Christian, with the size of this resource. And I think it was in December you did an institutional raise. Was that correct?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we put 25 million into the company. That's supporting a heavy drill spend, 5 shifts of drilling, and now about to kick off the development studies, pre-feasibility level to bring all of these things together. But yeah, that gave us good support from Australia, and it was good to see.
Let's just talk news flow, Christian, because I think that's what investors want to find out about. They want to know, what is the news flow? What are the milestones that are going to be hit? This is a massive project. There are eyeballs probably looking at Hot Chili at the moment. I'm sure there's some conversations going on, but are you going to take this all the way through development and into mining? It's a big project.
Yeah, look, that is the strategy, to position the company, the board, the management, augment, upskill the team. We're very much doing that because we are pushing this towards a development decision. Along the way, yes, there are going to be conversations, and there are conversations with much larger parties that have much larger funding credentials and perhaps operational credentials on assets of this scale. So, that will be part of our journey. I'm not going to presuppose where that goes. My job is to build value rapidly and make sure that copper, is the number one performing metal, that our shareholders are about to get one hell of a jolt in terms of a re-rate in the value of this company. What we've had over the last 4 months, and I'll be frank with you, Kerry, yes, we did an institutional raising, and from that point, most people would have assumed that Hot Chili would be 10 or 15 cents by now.
Absolutely. So why is it that
the world-class results keep coming? 5 shifts of drilling are now on the ground. Chile's not falling apart. We've been able to do things that most companies over there haven't done. So most people say, what the hell is wrong? There's got to be something wrong. But it never, ever surprises me that the market, is there for people to make money. And sometimes, people are there to trade.
They're just trading.
And some of those parties are bigger than other parties.
Is that trading going to continue, or is there going to be some clear air going forward? Because you mentioned a re-rating, and I think that we're talking to my investment community at the moment, and they do like copper. It seems to me that you're on the cusp. I mean, you've got a massive resource there. What's holding it back?
Well, when you have 50% or 60% of the cell volume being accounted for by one or two parties, there's not a lot you can do about that. And that's been a feature of us for the last 3 or 4 months, giving a perception that there must be something wrong. You put out a world-class intercept and we trade down, and people scratch their head because Solaris puts out the same intercept and finishes 38% higher on the day. So, it gives a perception that something must be wrong. But the fundamentals are clear. We have strong cash. We have a very, very aggressive growth program going on. We're in Chile. We have the largest resource base. So you tick all of that off and you go, there's got to be some manipulation here. And
absolutely,
I unfortunately can't discuss that. But the most important thing for investors is I imagine that even the biggest hands run out of bullets. And we've been very patient.
Yeah.
And I've been very, very pleased that the Australian retail investors, so don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people in Australia that do get copper and do get what we're doing. And I'm very, very pleased that those people have stood in front of that and that we've repatriated those shares into the hands of people that are more long-term in their investment view. And so do we have fresh air? I imagine that that's probably just begun in the last day or two.
Oh, wow. This is a really good, timely interview. Well, listen, we're running out of time, Christian. I'm so excited that we got to speak to you today. Here's how I want to finish it up. Right now, lots of investors looking, going, wow, hot Chile. It's just been sort of trading. There's some clear air around you now. There's lots of drilling. I always say to people, you've got to look at where they're putting the money. You've got a 20 million drill program for this year. That's massive. It's only going to increase this resource. What would you say to investors looking right now and saying, oh, maybe hot Chile is a good investment? Why right now?
I think let's finish on the drilling. So a lot of people have been saying, wow, there's just not enough drill news flow for the amount of drilling that's going on. Well, when you drill a hole and you put it into laboratories that are backlogged, etc., it doesn't mean it disappears. It doesn't mean that the results aren't coming. It means that you've got a wall of results about to hit the market. So we're drilling kilometre and a half holes. We're drilling shallow holes, and we're drilling expansion holes. We're hitting new targets, and we really, really like what we're doing on the ground. Cortadera is a fantastic asset. It is going to propel the company towards a tier 1 asset. So without giving away anything, we're really looking forward to getting out our next results.
When are they going to be coming? Very soon?
Oh, I think that they're not far away at all, Kerry.
All right. Well, then it's a very good time to be chatting to you today, Christian Easterday, trading on the OTCQB here on the ASX code HCH. Ladies and gentlemen, they're only just getting started. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Christian Easterday, thank you so much for chatting with us today. And I look forward in the next couple of months to chatting with you again with an update on those drill results.
Yeah, well, I don't think we have to wait too long.
Good to hear. Thanks, Christian.
Great. Thank you.